and we at the UWP certainly wish him well in all his future endeavors. I am indeed humbled by the confidence expressed by my peers to have me continue to serve in the capacity of acting interim chair of the UWP. I thank them most sincerely for that opportunity and want to assure them I will undertake the extended challenge to the best of my ability. Let me just say that the UWP is a highly democratic organization. It is membership driven. And just as you have challenges in families, our party is no different. We are family. Everyone is different. But it is our shared goal of being the preferred political party for St. Lucia or of St. Lucia that binds us together. The one incumbent or the one imbued with the capacity to effectively govern the affairs of this country. And so I think there is an error on my paper. I will need to make a change here. But I just want to say that we are a team at the UWP. We are different people. We believe in consensus. We believe that as human beings, we all must disagree before we can agree. We believe in those values, and as such, we, the members of the United Workers' Party, will remain unchanged in that respect. I therefore want to assure St. Lucians that the UWP is continuing its thrust of rebuilding and is adopting a posture and maintaining a posture of readiness for any eventuality. We are indeed a dynamic organization. We are alive and well. And we are determined under the current political leadership of Honorable Alan Michael Shastney to ensure that the best team emerges from the UWP. Honorable Shastney is the only leader, apart from our beloved Sir John Compton, who has achieved victory at the polls. And we are exceedingly grateful that we have his experience and vision to guide us at this critical time. I want to publicly thank him on behalf of Team UWP. In the last year and a half, we have been engaged in a series of processes that has led us to this point. We have chosen our convention date, finally. We have chosen our convention date. And this will be preceded by zonal meetings, as well as our conference of delegates, and a series of town hall meetings on matters relevant to our membership and, of course, the people of St. Lucia, respectively. It is indeed an exciting time, an extremely busy period for us. We are confident that this process will yield a winning team of highly capable men and women with everyday values of honesty, respect, hard work, team play, and commitment to lead the charge for the UWP. Values which are enshrined in our Constitution and appear to be under threat, given what we are witnessing under the hands of the current administration. The UWP is best known to offer our country undisputable, politically irresistible, bold and daring leadership. And at the conclusion of our processes, we will see that leader emerging. A leader who will fight for you, the citizens of this country. A leader who knows how to get up, after being knocked down. A leader who is not deterred or daunted by the frustration tactics of detractors. A leader who effectively counters attempts by those detractors who use fear to woo and confuse people. A good leader who knows how to get water flowing in the well. A leader who knows how to calm people and allay their fears. A leader whose name is on the lips of every St. Lucian. A leader who the young, the old, the marginalized, the poor, the weak, the activists, the non-activists, the bystander, the bus driver, the vendor, everyone knows. You name it, everyone will know that leader. A leader who people watch and admire. A person with a good, sincere, and loving heart. At Team UWP, we will deliver a leader who will work for you, the people of St. Lucia, A leader who is focused on subsidizing the food prices and dealing with the oil crisis. A leader who will be focused on creating employment opportunities. A leader who will provide support to parents and children as the kids try to go to school across the country. A leader who will diligently work for a better future for St. Lucia and all St. Lucians. You know, today, many citizens remain disappointed. Many people remain disappointed, disillusioned. Unemployment continues to rise. Our healthcare system is in a fragile and under stress. It's fragile and it's under stress. St. Jude's Hospital is no closer to completion. Our road network is in a deplorable state. Now, it's not we eating roads, but roads are eating we. You know, I went to the barber this morning, and the barber said to me, you know, Mrs. Bellows, I must let you know, my suspension cost me $2,000. I went into a hole near my home, you know. And so we have to be mindful of these. Our drivers are feeling the pinch. Our commuters too are getting the backaches and the waist aches as a result of commuting around our country. The housing projects are at a standstill. The Hiranura Airport, a critical project for our country, is on a limb. Breaches are consistent in our parliament. You know, tensions are running high. And there appears to be tacit endorsement of incompetence and negligence, you know, by those in authority. Importantly, our current Prime Minister maintains his usual posture of being detached from the society. And let me explain what I mean by this. It was 2 years after the pandemic when the Prime Minister said to us he was still waiting on the science. 2 years. Thousands of people globally had died, St. Lucians had passed, but he was waiting on the science. 20 years after he was the Minister of Tourism, he still did not understand the significance of tourism, the tourism industry in St. Lucia. 14 years after the St. Jude's fire, the Prime Minister, who has been in government for 15 years, has no clue on how many beds he's going to deliver as a man with a vision for the South. This is the same Prime Minister who is also conducting an investigation at taxpayers' expense, and he has no idea who he's investigating. The Prime Minister speaks publicly in this modern era, you know, and then challenges anyone to bring a tape of the conversations or of what he said. 25 years of representation in the East Castries East, and a good Samaritan is frustrated thanks to his office. His overall development strategy is all about blocking holes, and we see that not only in our failing road network. The Prime Minister is detached from our society, and I say that again. He does not understand the power of example to grow and learn to become better. The Prime Minister needs to come out of his dark world and see the reality of our country. We need him to recognize that he cannot define the prime ministership of our country in this way, lest we all are doomed. Our country can do better. I beg of Mr. Pierre to open his eyes and get on with the business of moving the country. Do what his father would have done as an honest police officer of this country. And you know, as I say that, I'm reminded of the from within the bosom of the UWP. We believe in fighting the wrong that needs resistance and helping the cause that needs assistance. The Speaker of the House of Assembly was wrong and continues to get it wrong. He must go. He has bad faith. He's incompetent and incapable of doing the job. He demeans the high office with which he was entrusted. St. Lucia deserves better. Our Nobel laureates must be turning in their graves, you know, while we call on the Prime Minister to do what is the right thing for us as a citizenry and lift that burden off the backs of St. Lucians. The abuse is too much, you know. Imagine the court has confirmed, I'm going back on it again, you know, because some of our people don't listen. Imagine the court has confirmed the obvious, yeah? All of us in here, I'm sure, we saw the obviousness in that case of Chasley versus the Speaker of the House. The Speaker lost the case as expected by every one of us. You know, every objective, right-thinking St. Lucian would see that this case was a sham. The position of the Speaker requires impartiality and thoroughness in making decisions at best. The example that we see in the last 18 months has been nothing short of that standard, has been everything short of that standard. We have seen misuse and abuse of authority by the Speaker. As citizens, we must all ask ourselves how much more of this gross display of incompetence and disrespect, you understand, at the highest level, we are prepared to tolerate. I wish to remind the Prime Minister that good examples are set from the top. Examples are set from the top, not at the bottom. And he has a golden opportunity. I want to assure St. Lucians that the time is coming when the UWP will call on every citizen, especially those who have been abused, those who have been misled, those who have gone astray, and those who have chosen to be like the prodigal sons and daughters, to stand up and be counted. Stand up and be counted, because our country can do better. Yes, we can do better. You know, on the heels of the 44th anniversary of our independence, I want to end with a quote from our national anthem. And in the second line, in the second verse, it says, "Gone the days when strife and discord deem her children toil and rest. Dawns at last a brighter day, stretches out a glad new way." And that new way, from all we have seen and from all we have endured in the last 18 months as St. Lucians, moving forward, that new day can only be done with the United Workers' Party. Thank you very much.
Just before you leave, first you said about the date for the convention. Can you just tell us when is this?
Yes, the convention is the 16th of April. 16th of April this year.
Where will it be?
It's in the south of the island. We'll disclose all of that detail in time.
Okay, from your statement there today, I realized that you talk about a leader and a leader. From all indications, like the party has made up its mind of who will be the leader?
Well, we have to go through our processes. So we go through the process, and of course the leader will emerge. I've told you the type of leader our country is looking for. I've told you the type of leader the UWP is capable of producing. So it's any man's guess at this point who that leader is going to be.
Do you have anybody up for challenging
Well,
leadership? Have they nominations or anything?
Well, we don't have, that process has not commenced yet. So once that process commences, we would know. But as of now, we have not been able to fill out nominations yet, because there are some processes that we still have to go through before we get to convention. Okay, the zonal council, the delegates, conference of delegates, all of these avenues for that to happen. Yes, for engagements to happen with persons who wish to become leaders or leader. Okay? So I would now like to hand over to, although before I hand over, on a separate note, we would have lost one of our outstanding leaders within the UWP, our General Secretary, and of course the Chairman of the party, Mr. Heraldton Nicholas Celestin. He served the party from the early 70s up until the early 90s. He also ran the seat of Beaufort North in 1974. He passed away, and of course we mourn with his family and extend deepest condolences, you know, to his family and the friends, and of course the stalwarts of our party who knew him so well over the years. Thanks. I'd now like to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Guy Joseph.
Ready? All right. Special good morning to everyone, all listeners, viewers. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to join with my colleague, the Deputy Chair of the United Workers' Party, Ms. Fortuna Belrose, to be part of this press conference to address in particular matters pertaining to the St Jude reconstruction project. It's 18 months since the government, well, a little over 18 months since they assumed office, and all we are getting is excuses, innuendos, statements, that does not tell us whether we are going left or whether we are going right. It's very unfortunate that the Prime Minister, under whose portfolio the St Jude project finds itself, because it is under the office of the Prime Minister, again of a St. Lucia Labour Party. The only time a Prime Minister did not preside over the St. Jude project was between 2016 and 2021. That is when the Ministry of Economic Development was separate and apart from the Ministry of Finance. When the St. Jude project started under the UWP administration, then Prime Minister Stephenson King was in charge. Then the government changed in 2011 and Dr. Kenny Anthony took over. In 2016, there was a split in the ministry, and then the Ministry of Economic Development was responsible for the project for which I was minister in that ministry. We had a change of government again in 2021, and it has returned under the portfolio of the Prime Minister. And I can say categorically here that the three Prime Ministers who have presided over the St. Jude project are still clueless about what is happening at St. Jude and what has happened at St. Jude over the years. And I will name them: Honorable Stephenson King, Honorable Dr. Kenny Anthony, and Honorable Philip J Pierre. Every time you hear them in an interview, they give you an excuse. They cannot answer a question. I mean, sometimes I wonder if that is the type of leadership that our country can produce. So I will give you a simple example. On their own report that they just commissioned, the St. Lucia Labour Party, not my report. The report, they said, that is made up of committees, a committee of experts. And while we are at that, I have asked the question in other forums. I want to know the qualifications of Mr. Mark Hennicat, who is it Mark Hennicat? Mr. Hennicat, who is one of the persons cited on this report as an expert. And I'm calling for his qualifications because the Labour Party, over the years, have always questioned the qualifications of individuals, whether the certificates are authentic, whether they went to the school that they said. So I want to know what school he went to. I want to know what qualifications he attained in architecture. I know he has experience, but I want to know what papers are there to back his experience. And I've gone through my fair share of it, so I'm in a good position to ask a question like this. Going back to the issue of our prime ministers and how clueless they are. Honorable Stephenson King, in 2011, there were letters written asking for expedited delivery of equipment for St. Jude. That is how much St. Jude was ready to be opened prior to the elections of 2011. And we are now in 2023. And St. Jude is no closer to being completed, as my other colleagues have indicated. So, did the Prime Minister know what was happening? Dr. Kenny Anthony, when he assumed office in 2011, gave at least 3 or 4 different dates, and it is all in Hansard in the Parliament of opening dates for St. Jude, and it never happened. The most recent one was the interview that I had the opportunity to watch with our present Prime Minister, Philip J Pierre, indicating that the experts will tell you how many beds, and that's not technically. If a Prime Minister is building a hospital, I don't need you to be an expert to tell me where beds are being placed and where the operating theater is going to be. But you don't know how many beds going in a hospital. You ask the average St. Lucian, they would know that OKEU is a 122 bed facility, and that VH was a 166 bed facility. I can just call these numbers from the top of my head. Okay? You telling me a prime minister who has debated in parliament, has represented the people for 30 years plus, and you don't know how many beds? And in your own report says that according to the Ministry of Health, and I will read it for you in the report, page 16, item number 7.8. The ministry officials confirmed that they did not sign off on final drawings that was sent to the DCA for approval. Only the conceptual drawings prepared in 2019 was forwarded to the ministry. The ministry also advised that based on their analysis, St. Jude should be a 70-bed facility. That is what their report says, not my report. So did Mr. Philip J Pierre read this report before he tabled it in Parliament? And if he read it, he could at least have answered the reporter by saying to the reporter, according to the report, the Ministry of Health said it should be a 70-bed facility. That's basic. That's elementary. A primary school child would be given an assessment to do, an assignment to read a comprehension, and then to comment on it, and would have done better than Philip J Pierre did in this. The Honorable Philip J Pierre, because I want to show due respect to the office of the Prime Minister, even though I have little regard for the person who holds the office. So, now, in their own report, on the 7.3, page 14, I believe, because I want to give it to you so those bright labor people out there who have their reports can open it at home and can read what I am saying there to see that it is so. So the Ministry of Health said it should be a 70-bed facility. According to the SJHRP, that's the St. Jude Reconstruction Project, report dated 29 July 2021 by the NAO, that's the National Uprising Office, prior to the commencement of site preparation works on St. Jude Phase 2. Phase 2 is the one that was being built by the United Workers' Party government. Government took the decision to reconstruct a 90-bed healthcare facility. It's in the report. So the United Workers' Party was building a 90-bed facility. According to their report, it says that what they were building is a 70-bed facility. Now, here's the problem we have with planning in St. Lucia and with implementation of projects. It's simple. You start planning something today. So St. Jude should have been open 10 years ago. By the time you open it, it's too small. It's outlived its usefulness. In other words, it is no longer adequate to meet the time for which it was designed. Why would you design a 70-bed facility for Viewfort? Now, I can well understand the thinking of the St. Lucia Labour Party government, because if they can sign an agreement not to develop Viewfort for the next 40 years, then it is clear that they have no intentions of having people residing in Viewfort. So maybe they want to send everybody up to Castries so that at the end of the day, you can have a 30-bed facility in the south. I mean, what is it that the Prime Minister does not understand? Now, hospitals are usually measured by bed counts. And these beds are not all the beds that are in the hospital. So the hospital being designed by the United Workers' Party would have overall in the region of 156 beds. But 90 of these beds are beds for patients to stay over. All other rooms where you are doing treatments, where people are under observation, where these things. So there are several other beds. So we know the facility that we were building. It is obvious that the Prime Minister himself does not know what he is building. Now, I'm challenging the media today. How many times did we say that the old St Jude had no planning approval? By the Prime Minister's own interview, what did he say? He said that we would have to get DCA approval. So if you had DCA approval for the old St Jude that you are building, why do you need DCA approval today? Why do you need full DCA approval? And I further challenge you that the government had paid over $6 million to Halcro for design and supervision of works. So if we paid $6 million for design and supervision of the old St. Jude Hospital, why don't we have DCA approval? When the very first page of the contract entered in with Halcro was that we should have DCA approvals. And the government broke its own law by allowing a hospital to be constructed over a period of more than 10 years without DCA approval. And the DCA themselves failed the people of St. Lucia. And I believe everybody on these boards of DCA should have been taken to task. Because if you build in a little plywood house somewhere in the countryside, DCA will come there and stop you. Sometimes you're doing repairs. I knew somebody who was putting a roof over a 40-foot container and DCA came and stopped them. Planning. Development Control Authority. You cannot do this. If you're doing more than 10% change in your house, you need a planning approval. How could a hospital be built that cost us over $100 million? In fact, it was closer. It was the completed price, estimated price, would have been $178 million. And no planning approval, and nobody at DCA went there to stop the project. Nobody questioned what was happening. You have heard several things they have said about the new St. Jude we were building. On their own report, 10.2 says, 10.12, that there is full DCA approval for the phase 2, they call it. Now, I will tell you something. I've deliberately not made reference to the box that they referred to. You know why? And I heard the press secretary for the Labour Party. All buildings have a shape. We appear so ignorant, so foolish, so stupid to use a description that is derogatory. And that came from none other than John Peters. That's why in my books, I cross his name out as an engineer. Every basic engineer who would have left school, if you did technical drawing at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College or at CXC level, you would know that all buildings have a shape. It can be square, it can be rectangular, it can be circular, it can. Every solid thing has a shape. How do you, as a professional in a field, come and make reference to something in a derogatory manner because of the shape of it? So, we have to understand that politicians make stupid pronouncements. And it tells you, and I class John Peters in the category of a stupid politician. He didn't speak there as an engineer. If he was speaking as an engineer, he would have known different. So, St. Jude, the government gave you several prices. That was Mr. Philip J Pierre kept on convoluting the prices. Their own report says that we spent $118 million on St. Jude, but only $89 million has been paid, and there's an outstanding amount of about 28 million to be paid. What is so difficult with this mathematics? And then if another 40 million is to be spent to complete the ground floor, to move into the facility, then with a price of about 160 million, you would have St. Jude move from the George Odlum Stadium to the new St. Jude, a modern building. And I need to explain, and this is what, this report, I have never seen more crap in a report in my life. And if I was a professional, I would never put my signature to a report like this. The report has more assumptions than it has facts. The report even lied about the size of the building. Something you can go and pull a tape and measure length by width, and everybody knows, the basic school child knows how to calculate square footage. For a rectangle or a square is length by width. You multiply and you get the square footage. Anybody can go and pull a tape and measure the buildings that are built at St. Jude presently and know how much square footage. The report shows, the committee chose to report that the old St. Jude, now mind you, they call it a monstrosity. But according to their own report, their buildings are bigger than ours. It is just made up of 25 small buildings. Think of running a hospital with 25 small buildings. You need an x-ray, you run to that building over there. You need to get the results of the x-ray, you run to the other building over there. A nurse has to be attending to one person there and one person. And we all know that we are living in a modern era. We are living in a day when the internet has made global things available to us. You can Google any hospital. I have several pictures. UMass, St. Vincent Hospital in Boston. All of these hospitals, they are a big building in one. Take Cleveland Clinic in Florida. You pass there and you see this big building. It might be 10, 12 stories high. Everything under one roof. We went to Cayman Health City, one of the most modern hospitals in this region, to see the design. And St. Jude was designed after the model of what we saw at Cayman Health City. So I'm saying all of this to highlight that it is the right of the government to choose to go to whichever building they want. But to come and lie in a report about the measurements of a building. So they reported that the old St. Jude is about 160 plus thousand square feet. And the new St. Jude we were building is 154,000 square feet. Here's what they did not tell you in the report. The dialysis building and the physiotherapy building, which are both part of the new St. Jude, which is it's over 50,000 square feet, these two buildings. Because they plan to use it in the new St. Jude, they did not calculate it as part of the building of the new St. Jude that we were doing. So when the parliamentary rep for Castries Southeast came in and said, well, based on his calculations, the building, the old St. Jude was done cheaper than the new St. Jude. He lied because the information is incorrect. Or if he did not lie, he was misled. Because if he goes based on the calculations that are there, and here's the further calculation. They said they spent 98 million. So let's round it off to 100 million for easy calculation. 60% of it was for construction and 40% for furniture. So you tell me you build a $60 million building and you spend $40 million to buy furniture to put in the St. Jude. That's based on their report, you know. That is what the Prime Minister tabled in Parliament to be debated. I want to know where the $40 million worth of furniture is. Because at the end of the day, $40 million worth of furniture is no little bit of furniture, you know. So these are the questions that need to be asked. And I know they said that I went and collected the furniture. I didn't go and collect the furniture. I went and supervised the collection of some of the furnitures. And then it was all stored because we were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for furniture stored in containers, in people's backyard, in people's stores that St. Jude had paid for. And there was a big empty warehouse that they had built at St. Jude. So we collected everything that belonged to St. Jude under supervision and placed it in the warehouse with the same securities that we found when we came in on the St. Jude site. We didn't change the securities. The securities are the same persons. So I want the media to understand, and the people of St. Lucia, that a government can choose to lie to the people, but the facts remain the facts. And no matter how many times you repeat a lie, it does not make it true. People can believe it to be true. So, the St. Jude we were building is about 217,000 square feet. And it's not difficult to go and pull a tape and measure floor space. Now, I don't know if because there are 2 floors that they measured only the ground floor and did not calculate the top floor for square footage. I mean, I really cannot understand how a team of experts could come with these kinds of numbers, put it in a report, document it, and go and table it in Parliament, that it becomes part of the historical records of this country. I would hate for my name to be associated with that. And everybody on this committee should be ashamed of themselves that they would have misled the people of St. Lucia. And you cannot erase it after you've written it, you know. And you've tabled it in Parliament. It cannot be erased. And anybody can go and measure the buildings. Maybe the media should require of the government to go on a site visit and pull your tapes and measure and show the people of St. Lucia how much of a lie this report is. Now, if you're going to lie about the measurements, why do I believe the other things that are there? If you are lying about what is so obvious, how do I take anything else in this report at face value? So, the government is clueless about what to do, and I know that for a fact. In fact, my information is that they have now turned in-house to get people from inside the government to do the drawings for St. Jude. Now remember, I said we paid $6 million. Halcro should be brought to the table and asked to refund the money or to give us the approved drawings for St. Jude, because he got paid for it. They got paid for it in full, not partial payment. And I wasn't the one who paid them. The Dr. Kenny Anthony administration was the one who paid them. So they have a right to demand that if you got paid, we get delivery on what we paid for. So we're just going to allow $6 million to go down the drain, and now you're using the public servants to go and draw the hospital or design the hospital. Now, for you to design a building that is there, you have to go and do what we call as-built drawings. You have to go and measure every wall, see where every outlet is, where every pipe is running, where every column is. And then after you've done that, you reconfigure the building and you put it on a plan, and then you can cost it. So if Philip J Pierre was right about one thing, he will never know what this hospital will cost us until it finished. But he was smart. He has issued the first contract. Why didn't he say the first contract cost us $5 million or $10 million? I'm hearing both figures. I'm hearing that the cleanup cost $5 million. Some people are saying the contract was for $10 million. The cleaning and the hoarding. As the media received So when he was asked the question, what is it going to cost? An honest prime minister would have simply said, well, the first phase of what we have done, we signed a contract and it cost us $5 million. Now remember, John Peters said in an interview, and you should have it on your record, that between $5 and $10 million should complete the hospital. So if they've spent $5 million to clean it up, by now they should be moving the people from the stadium to the hospital. According to their own report, in 18 months they would finish the hospital. And according to their own report again, it says in 18 months is what it would take them to finish what the UWP government had started. So if they had not stopped the work, by their own admission in their own report, today we would have been moving in to the new St Jude hospital in the south, because it's 18 months. Their report, which they received in October, 4 months after the committee was put in place, said that in 18 months they would have completed St Jude and moved into the St Jude hospital. It is 18 months now. So I expect by March that we would be moving from the George Odlum Stadium to the new hospital, to the old St Jude hospital, based on the report of the professional committee that they said they put in place. If you have any questions on what I have said, I will seek to answer to the best of my ability. I can speak the whole day on St. Jude. So, I mean, there's so much. I have all the breakdowns of all the money that we spend. And all the millions of dollars they said that we paid to Fresh Start, that's a lie. And I can challenge the government on this anytime, because I have the records. And these are not my records. That is the last presentation that was made to the Cabinet Committee before we left office in 2021 on the breakdown of prices. And if you want, I can give you the breakdown, you know. Fresh Start Construction Company, site preparation, $7.784 million. Total construction supply, $7.039 million. Caribbean Metal, $712,000. Bryce and Company, $712. Fresh Start Construction, $10.4. Fresh Start Construction works on structural frame, $3.8. Fresh Start Construction works on structural frame, $2.1. OECC, that's the Taiwanese company, $37,634,000. A total of $70,274,607.10 is what was spent. So when they come and tell you, and of that, Fresh Start had contract, the total contract sum of $24 million to Fresh Start, and OECC was $37 million. So the bulk of the money spent on St. Jude was paid to OECC, which is the Taiwanese company that was undertaking the airport and the St. Jude's reconstruction project. Any questions?
Well, I think you were comprehensive on the front of St. Jude's, so I'll step aside from that for now.
Okay.
I want to know just you personally. I know before past you had said you were maybe not too keen on returning to the life of politics, but can we see you in the next general elections, or what are your plans going forward?
My plan is to work with the United Workers' Party to give my full support to the present political leader. And I'm not one of those who sideline where my support is. My support is 100% behind Alan Chasney. I think he remains the best possible leader for the United Workers' Party and for St. Lucia. And his track record of performance is testament to what I'm saying. and I will continue to give him 100% support. We don't decide if we are candidates. A lot of people desire to be candidates. The people decide who they want to be candidates. And if you remember my first interview after the elections, I was happy when the people elected me, and I was happy when they tell me, we're tired of you, go and find something else to do. I've always been comfortable with myself and with what I'm capable of doing. So at the end of the day, if I was thinking of going up, I can't even say this on television because my wife I would never want her to hear that I'm going up for politics again, and we have not discussed that. So that is not something that I can tell you yes or no for. Life has many twists and turns. I don't rule out anything, but at the present moment, I've not decided where I want to be politically, other than to continue to be a member of the United Workers' Party and to give my full support to this party to regain the reins of government in this country.
Well said, bro.
Given that your constituency voted you out, if you were to return, is there something you would have done differently?
There's always need for change. So there are things you have to do differently. And the issue of voting out and voting in, if I tell you what I deal with on a daily basis, you'd think I'm still the parliamentary rep for Castries Southeast. The level of engagement, if I walk into the supermarket, if I walk the streets, if I drive the roads, anywhere I go, you'd think I'm still a parliamentary rep. And that is expected after you've represented people for a period of time in the Parliament of St. Lucia. I don't think that's unique to me. But I'm just saying the relationship that I've had with the people remains. I still visit people in the constituency. I still go to funerals. Because you don't form relationships with people because they elect you. And when you're no longer the parliamentary rep, you forget the people, you abandon them, and you turn your backs. No. My relationship with Castries Southeast goes much deeper than just a parliamentary rep. I still live in the constituency. Contrary to what people who posted my house on social media and put a for sale sign on it and said I was living Cap Estate, if you come up to Forestier, remember, I want you to drive into the development one of these days as the media. And I told you I would make my constituency into a Cap Estate. And we are not far from that. So I would never trade Forestier for Cap Estate. Never. If you paid me to live up Cap Estate, I don't want to live there. I will choose Forestier 1,000 times over anywhere else to live in St. Lucia. So that's where I grew up, that's where I love, and nothing will make me trade where I am now. So politics will take you a lot of places that you did not plan on going. You would look at things from different perspectives, but I believe that the UWP is still the best government for St. Lucia. And after 18 months of Labour Party, I mean, take our roads. I have said it, and I'm saying it to the media again. We have a former Prime Minister who is Minister of Infrastructure. And we have a present Prime Minister who was a former Minister of Infrastructure. And the roads are the worst I can remember them being in the history of St. Lucia. Now, I may not remember things, how the roads were in the 70s and back then. Not all the roads were up to the standards that they are. But you have two prime ministers who've held the portfolio. Then you have a government today with 3 prime ministers, 2 former and 1 present. You have Dr. Kenny Anthony, you have Stevenson King, you have Philip J Pierre. And they cannot put their heads together and find a solution to the problems of this country. Everything we are hearing is that they cannot do anything. I just did a review on the fuel prices. The last set of prices that I got for fuel was fuel that was landed in St. Lucia in December. And Sol was at $136 a barrel. And rubies, the lowest price for rubies was 116. And they take an average of the two. And if you take the average of the two, then the landed price of fuel would be below $9. So if you add the $2 and change that the wholesaler and the retailer makes, then it means that the government is making between $7 and $9 on every gallon of fuel. Add that to 20 million gallons of fuel a year, and the government is down to making the region of $140 million for just fuel alone. And how many times have the Prime Minister said to people he has not reached his quota? Does the media know his quota? What was the quota? How do I know when he has reached his quota? Did he come out and say that the government is expected to collect 100 million from fuel, so we've collected 90 million, we need to collect another 10 million. And when he reached that 10 million, then fuel should be duty-free. It should be tax-free because you've made your quota. But we know that's not how government operates. So the Prime Minister, to artificially keep the price of fuel high, gave a bogus answer to a straightforward question. And I call on people like Mr. Jamari. What does he have to say today when Grenada is about $12 a gallon of fuel, and in St. Lucia we are paying $17 a gallon of fuel, and our roads are the worst that it has ever been? That is what we have to hold this government accountable for. Not the cheap talk. They can talk all the talk they want. And I want to come to housing, so one of these days I need to have a special interview with the media on housing. If I had sold Banan to Fresh Start, what would the media be saying today? What would the media and the people of St. Lucia be saying? I have heard that Banan, and I can confirm that part of Banan's Bay, in that area where the old boats were in the corner on the road to Tapia, has been sold to a prominent local contractor who is well affiliated to the Labour Party. I'm hearing is his daughter, I'm hearing is him. I will get my documentation in time and I will present it. And my understanding is that property, and there's a valuation at the not Ministry of Housing, at the NHC for $6 million for that property. And I'm hearing that it was sold for $2 million. And I think the chairman, a former Prime Minister, Mr. Mikey Pilgrim, owes the people of St. Lucia an explanation for presiding over a board that would have sold an area that is part of the harbor to a private entity. I think that is what St. Lucians need to be interested in. The signing of an MOU not to develop Viewport for 40 years so that you can develop Port Castries, but Port Castries is fully developed. We just paid $20+ million for the berth at Point Seraphine. SLASPA is making enough money to pay its loan. In fact, SLASPA has enough on fixed deposit, at least when we were in government, that could pay off all of its loans. So why do you need to go into an agreement with GP? St. Lucia, when the Labour Party accused us of friends, family, and foreigners, now we see what friends, family, and foreigners really mean. Because St. Lucia is being sold on us. They wanted to give away our airport for 40 years, and look, now they've given the port for 40 years. So when you don't control your airspace and you don't control your seaports, then you don't control your country. Philip J Pierre is selling St. Lucia under us. And I think the media and the people of St. Lucia need to report adequately and hold the government accountable for what they are doing, how they are doing it. So everywhere, Theo Akim's contract was everywhere. You all can find the contract or the MOU with GP? Nobody can find that. I know what's in it, but I'm not in a position to come and disclose, because I have been a government minister. And I know the protocols of government. When we kept on saying there are certain things we could not respond to because you sign an agreement and it has confidentiality clause. What was Philip J Pierre and Ernest Hill and all of them saying? Alan Chasney is doing things and he don't want the people of St. Lucia to know. So what are they doing now? If they could have done it then, they need to do it now. That is where we need to hold governments accountable, whether it be Flabo or whether it be Labour. Everybody must be held accountable.
Any more questions? Okay. Let me just see. Thank you very much for the session this morning, and of course we look forward to seeing you next week.